Hello, hello. What is up, everybody? I know it usually takes a minute or two before people can actually trickle in, but I'm super excited to kick off this Coffee with Coalesce, yet another one. We got two great guests along with my beloved co-founder here, Satish. Very excited, not just for this, but also what's to come, which, as I said earlier, is the biggest, the best conference of the year. It's something that we all at Coalesce look forward to every year. It's the most well-orchestrated, most well-organized conference that I've ever been to, certainly in my career, which is Snowflake Summit. It's coming up in a couple of weeks in Las Vegas. So surely nothing could go wrong in Vegas. But I'm very excited to see so much other companies, so many different people. And, without further ado, I think we may as well kick it off with some introductions to two amazing Snowflake people that have been well focused on that ecosystem since the very, very early days. I remember meeting both of you, Frank and Kent, in some of the earliest stages of that business. So why don't Kent, you start off with a quick introduction? We'll go to Frank and then Satish.
Sure. So yeah, Kent Graziano, the data warrior. Actually, Armon, you and I have known each other before Snowflake.
Yeah, that's right.
We predate Snowflake. You were literally in the organization. It was my first week at Snowflake that I got with the partner manager at the time at Snowflake, and I gave him 2 email addresses to send to for partners to sign up, and one of them was your boss at the time.
Yep.
Mr. Bazitsky. Yeah. And
I remember.
said, yeah, we got to get these guys in and talk to everybody about that. It's like, yeah, you remember the other stuff I told you about that was so good? You got to sign up for this one. Yeah. You got to get into the Snowflake ecosystem as soon as possible. So, yeah. So I've, been in the data space for too many decades to count at this point. My most recent foray was joining Snowflake in, late 2015. I was employee 103, stayed there for 6 years, and then, took an early retirement, as it were, in late 2001 after 6 years at Snowflake as the Chief Technical Evangelist, and, hung my shingle, the data warrior, back up to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and a little bit of hanging out on the beach with my wife and our dog, and, just enjoying life and watching the Snowflake ecosystem blossom. Or actually, I should say snowball.
I love it. And how about you, Frank?
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Armon, Satish. It's always good to see Kent. I'm like maybe a decade behind him with all the data space, but yeah, really excited for Snowflake Summit. See a ton of my friends. I think it's going to be a great event. I've watched it grow since 2019. I have a couple speaking presentations there, a lot about native apps and Snowflake optimization. Really excited to be there and join the team. I ran my own Snowflake consulting company, sold it, eventually was acquired by Accenture. Now I'm part of XponentL and my own company, IT Strategist, building native apps.
Love it. Yeah.
Hopefully Frank, I wasn't frozen.
No, you're not frozen. You froze a little bit here, but for everybody in the audience, Frank is way cooler than us. He's in Belize at this moment. I usually do kick things off by asking where everybody is dialing in from or calling in from. So if you're anywhere in the world right now tuning in, shoot a comment right now and see if you can one up Frank Bell on Belize City, where he's calling in from right now. And also, just a quick warning, he may go in and out. His audio may go in and out, so we're gonna bear with him. But we love you, Frank. So this is what we do for you. And Satish, how about you? Want to do a quick intro before we get rolling?
Satish Jayanthi, CTO, co-founder. I've been in this space for a long time as well. Of course, similar to Frank. And I met Frank and Kent in my Warescape days. Way too many conferences to count, but I'm super excited to have this kind of discussion today. Yeah.
Cool. And I'm the host, Armon Petrossian, CEO, co-founder of Coalesce. I go way back with all three of you. I think that you've all each played a different role in my career. I know, Frank, when I moved down to SoCal and was living out in Los Angeles for a bit, we spent a lot of time on the road together. You were such a good broadcasting spokesperson in the field out there for Snowflake, especially in the early days as they were doing events like Data for Breakfast and whatnot. Kent, you've always been an evangelist of technology and cutting edge tech, which is a big reason why we wanted to bring you on as an advisor at Coalesce in the first place. But we saw that firsthand during the growth of Snowflake in the early stages and how quick and awesome that experience was. And, you know, like you said, we go way back. So it's a complete pleasure to have you back on. And then, of course, Satish, I mean, this just goes without being said, man. It's been a fun journey with you since day one. So
yeah. One thing I wanted to also mention about Kent, how I kind of used to follow his blog, the Data Warrior blog, when he was doing Oracle stuff.
Yes.
Well, it goes a long way. I mean, you know, I knew Kent who he was. He didn't know who I was, but he was a star.
Look at you now, man. You're on a coffee with Coalesce with Kent as the guest. Look how far you came.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, it looks like we got a bunch of people from all over the world right now. I'm seeing some comments in from places like Montreal with John. We've got somebody in Cape Town, South Africa. We got Noel out in Minneapolis. So it's awesome to see people from all over the place tuning in. Why don't we get started? I think this is such a fun topic to talk about. We're coming up on Summit, but like one thing you mentioned, Frank, is watching Summit grow since 2019. And, you know, I remember going to that first ever Snowflake Summit, and it was here in San Francisco where I'm based. And it was a small group. I think they were able to fill it in at one of the hotels here.
Yeah.
And
Hilton Union Square.
Yeah. Hilton Union Square. And it was such a great conference. And then we had the pleasure to go to the Las Vegas Snowflake Summit last year. And I remember talking to Satish, like, this thing has gone so much bigger. Yeah, it's completely exploded.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was that snowball has grown massively, and it was cool to see that contrast, especially during the changes during the pandemic. So many companies had gone further along, and so yeah, I'm curious. Looking back, let's start there. Looking back, like, what was one of the things that was most notable to each of you from Snowflake Summit? Well, Frank, why don't you start? Like, what's always been your favorite aspect of Snowflake Summits in the past?
Well, I'll see if I can stay non-frozen. But I was laughing because I don't think Denise and all the team really realized how popular that 2019 conference is going to be. Because I don't know if you remember, it was just packed. We're standing in the stairwells and stuff. Yep. And I mean, it was awesome. It was just kind of the right.
No, we were following the rules of the fire marshal. Just to be clear.
Exactly.
Yes. We closed people out of rooms and made them wait outside. We didn't overload the rooms. We ran some sessions twice because they were so popular.
It was all above board, is what you're saying, Ken.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. I'm sure there was some lawyer out there ready to
people as they went into the room to make sure we did not violate the fire marshal's rules.
Oh man. So Frank, keep going.
Yeah, so it's just amazing to see that. And I was looking at some past blogs and stuff. Like, I don't know, it's 2020. It was like 40 sessions. Okay, it was online or whatever. I was just looking now. It's 440 sessions, I think. So
for this year's,
like you said, last year it just blew up. Yeah, and by last year it was similar, may not as many, but it just blew up. And you know, I think last year and what we'll see this year again is the big thing is going to be AI, LLMs, a lot of changes related to that. But last year, what we saw was Snowflake really kind of morph from, you know, not just this data warehouse, data this. It was really became disrupting data applications was a lot of what, you know, Chris Kleinerman and Slootman talked about. And the TAM of Snowflake just like, it just really like exponentially grew. And so we're kind of seeing the progress of that this year. And I'm most excited about native apps personally, but there'll be a ton of new things coming out.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I do remember that big push on messaging around native apps in the last year, and just kind of growing from that data warehouse. The previous slogan being the only data warehouse built for the cloud, and then now expanding off of it into so many other segments, and not just analytics, but just data platforms, the data cloud in general. And that was the big focus and push at last year's summit. Kent, you've been to all the summits. Like, what looking back on it, what's one thing that you always feel like is awesome about the conference?
Oh, well, I mean, always the main keynotes, right?
Yeah.
Hearing from the CEO. So in 2019 and 2020, in 2021, well, I guess it was 22, yeah, last year, Frank. But I remember the first one there in 2019 when Benoit, one of the co-founders there of Snowflake, got up on the stage, and I talked to him afterwards, and that was the first major public speaking thing he had ever done in his career. You got to remember, Benoit Interior engineers and architects. And when I first met them and I joined Snowflake, it's like, as Satish referenced, I spent nearly 30 years in the Oracle community, in user groups, and the first Oracle Open World, and user groups in Europe and everywhere. And I had never met Benoit and Thierry. Right? I'd never met them. It's like, surely we've crossed paths somewhere. And he's like, oh, no. We stayed in our cubes. Right. And to see that, to have someone who is an engineer, like that, to get up on stage in front of a couple thousand people and talk about the creation of Snowflake and the vision that he and Thierry had, that was amazing. And then last year he did a little bit of the same, for the people new to the show. He ran through a little bit of the history of the company and the unique architecture that they invented. And it's like, we got to be clear about that. This is why it's so exciting. Is that Benoit and Thierry invented a brand new architecture, and that's what's made the difference. When French says the data warehouse built for the cloud, because that was a cool thing to say, and then it became a cloud data platform, and then it was the data cloud. And now I think about the rapid expansion, as you were referencing. Last year we introduced the idea of industry verticals, industry clouds, and that's just grown massively. And now we're adding native apps. So think about, my background's actually environmental science, so think about meteorologically. You look at a cumulus cloud that starts to grow and grow and grow and turn into basically a massive storm cloud. And that's kind of what Snowflake's done. It started off like this, and then it's kind of growing, and it's growing very organically in different directions. And like Frank said, the TAM has exploded. The total addressable market has grown with it as the data cloud has kind of expanded and spread out into these other areas well beyond traditional data warehousing. And I think, one of the challenges Snowflake has is getting people to understand that it's not just data warehousing. I mean, even as the evangelist there, I was constantly having to talk about that. It's like, it's not just data warehousing. It's not just data lakes. We've got all these other things, data science and data pipelines where you guys specialize, right? Supporting data pipelines and data engineering. And now, as Frank's mentioned a couple of times, native apps, right? Yeah. And when they introduced Unistore last year and this idea of hybrid tables, it's like, okay, now we're starting to move towards my old world and you guys' old world, the OLTP world that, Oracle really dominated for decades. Well, now we're getting into, back to the mixed workloads so that we can support, high speed transaction based applications, as well as massive data science and machine learning type use cases, and do it all together in the same place. So now you can have, real time data, operational data as part of that framework to help be making these data driven decisions and forecasts and everything, and having the most recent data, which is really exciting. And if the pandemic showed us anything, is in some cases things happened that nobody ever anticipated, and that changed the trajectory of companies, but it changed the data, right? Is very different data started coming in that nobody had ever thought about before, and being able to take advantage of that data as quickly as possible and not be necessarily building your machine learning on old data and old trends, but to be able to do it on the new data and the new trends that are in that data is even more important, because it's, the machines only learn from what we show them. And so we've got to be able to show it stuff that's realistic and give it the data that's realistic. And that's the exciting part, right? Is, as you mentioned, the talking about LLMs and generative AI, so we've gone from, data warehousing in the cloud and being able to handle massive workloads and petabytes of data, to now we're talking about generative AI and what are we going to do with all that data? And, that's going to be a lot of the really exciting stuff this year. And the best place to get it, back to my original statement, is the keynotes, right? You got to get in those keynotes, listen to them, and then based on what you hear in the keynotes, pick out those sessions to drill down on the stuff that you're interested in, because there's so much. How many sessions did you say it was, Frank? 400 and something sessions?
440.
Yeah. So, you got to come up with a game plan, and I'm a big Agile fan. So this is just in time conference planning. Go to the keynotes, find the subjects there, and make sure you have that scheduling app on your phone so that you can now go through and search on those topics and then find the sessions for the next 3 hours that are specifically in those areas that you want to hear about, that you just heard Frank mention, or you just heard Benoit mention, or you just heard Christian mention, and you want to drill in on those. And then you can be scheduling yourself right then and getting into the stuff that's going to make the biggest bang for the buck for you for attending the conference.
Yeah, I love that advice on attending all the keynotes. Those are always a huge hit. I saw that they got the CEO of NVIDIA for this year's summit, just pushed that through in the past couple of weeks. That was announced. I think that's going to be such an awesome one with Frank Slootman, their CEO. But like you said, Kent, people oftentimes forget, because typically Snowflake CEO has been the figurehead of their business, but there's these incredible co-founders, technical co-founders that started the business and really were the ones who created the architecture and the plans from their days at Oracle working on these high volume databases. So that's awesome to hear that that's a notable moment. I also see parallels in different industries, different companies, like the large enterprise software businesses of the world, where you see a company that's very dominant in one segment expand out to other segments. And you saw that happen with like Salesforce, you saw that happen with Oracle, and in the same scenario, in the same breath, we're seeing that happen in real time with Snowflake as they transcend past the data warehouse solely and just becoming the data cloud in general. I think like you also mentioned around the pandemic having a huge influence on the growth of the industry here. I was speaking at a LP meeting for one of our VCs, and there was this insane statistic around how 90% of the world's data was created in the last 2 years alone. And so you think about trying to find a platform that can support that exponential growth, and whether that's OLTP or OLAP, you want to have it all in one place. It makes it so much easier to be able to do anything data related, assuming Snowflake can execute on that vision, which, as we've seen in the past, is such a high level of execution. So it's exciting to see what's to come. Before we do jump to that, Satish, is there anything that you love most about the previous summits that you've been to?
Yeah, so last time was my first one, actually, that we were, we had a booth there, and it was super exciting. That's the best conference I have ever kind of attended in my life. It basically, the reason for that is, of course, we were there as a company. We work on Snowflake exclusively. So anybody who we are talking to, we can kind of have a common interest. So that was pretty awesome. It's just an opportunity to network with so many people, and you can learn, as Kent was pointing out, those key notes. Those are very, very important if you're trying to kind of understand where Snowflake is going. what's the next big thing or things, you know? So no, I was of course last time I was kind of busy at the booth, and we were a little bit smaller than what we are today. But this time I'm planning to attend as many events as I can. So I'm super looking forward to this.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I've been to a couple of the Snowflake Summits in the past, and every single time I felt like leaving that event was the best conference that I'd been to. Last year definitely was. Of course, for us, you know, we had just came out of stealth like a few months prior. So my favorite part of that was seeing everybody's reaction after seeing our product for the first time. Like, where the hell have you guys been? Like, how have I never seen this before? I heard that probably 100 different times.
Because we just invented it.
Yeah. We just launched publicly. So that's why. So that was like a hilarious reaction I saw over and over again. It's one of my favorite parts, along with, you know, seeing all these different people in the industry and the ecosystem, watching other partners grow, you know, running into different people that I've worked with in the past or, you know, worked with as partners with different accounts and companies. It's just an awesome event. That being said, the past is the past. I know we want to look forward here to the future. It's not too far away. It's a couple weeks out. And you guys talked about it a little bit. You alluded to it a little bit. But what is most exciting for you coming into this upcoming summit? What do you feel like going into this upcoming summit you're most excited about? And so, Kent, you know, just curious, if you were Frank, what would you be if you're going to summit and you're going to go to, like, obviously see the keynotes? What else is there that you're most excited about? You'd be most excited about going to anytime?
Well, there's a couple of things. You know, all of the, you know, the native app stuff and the interface with Snowpark and Streamlit and all of that. I'm very interested to see where that's going. And obviously Frank can actually talk to us about that, because that's what his talk's going to be about. And that's a really exciting evolution to see there. So I'm very interested in that. And of course, you have to go to the, there's going to be a panel discussion on generative AI and LLMs.
Huge.
Yeah, I mean, and that's huge. You know, seeing, you know, what are the possibilities there? What's the vision there? Particularly from the Snowflake product people. What's the vision there? I mean, they just acquired an AI related company a couple of weeks ago, right?
I saw that. Yeah.
So it's like, what's the vision? You know, where is this going? You know, I assume it's going to be, you know, a lot more tight coupling of these types of features with the underlying engine and evolutions in the engine to support that. I mean, we saw last year, what was it, the 6XL virtual warehouse.
Yep.
You know, we've got all of the automated stuff like Snowpipe and streams and tasks that are, you know, allowing you to do things dynamically without having to pre-allocate resources, which I think is very exciting. And so how's that going to work with in the AI space, right? You know, what are we going to do there supporting those kinds of workloads? So I'm really excited about hearing about those sorts of things, and really that evolution of Unistore and how that's going to interface with the native apps, which, you know, like I said, maybe Frank can tell us a little bit about that, but that could probably that's his entire talk. And then, of course, with all of this, though, I interestingly, and I'm gratified to see this, there's a lot of emphasis on governance.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, for people who have not been paying attention, you know, there's a lot of bad data out there. And if you feed bad data into machine learning algorithms and AI, you're going to get really bad results. And so governance has always been important, though always got kind of low down on the scale with a lot of data architectures. But now, you know, there's a big focus on that. You know, Snowflake's incorporating a lot of data governance features into the product to make it easier to do that and easier to scale. And then that's all rolls then into the evolution of the Snowflake marketplace, where it used to be just data sets. And now we're talking about, you know, data services and apps. And, you know, imagine, are we going to have, you know, AI algorithms available via the Snowflake marketplace, maybe? You know,
that's an interesting point. Yeah. You know, I'm super curious.
Can we share that? Are we going to be able to share machine learning algorithms? Right. And some people were already, I think, on the edge of sharing functions.
Yep.
Right. Embedded functions and stored procedures and things like that in the form of data services. So machine learning algorithm, that's just another level of a service, right? That's a service that somebody could provide. Is we provide the algorithm, you provide the input, right?
Yep.
So something that's already tested, but the governance around that has to be tight, right? It's got to be tight so that you know what you're getting, you know what you're doing, you have that control. So all of that's very, very, very exciting to see.
Yep.
And then of course, definitely want to search out any best practices sessions on performance optimization and cost optimization. That's another huge topic is financial observability, and really making it easier for people to get access to that sort of thing. Because as we're growing and growing, we got a 6XL, really, we have a 6XL. You do not want to leave that running unattended on purpose, right? That's, you got to make sure the RI is there, right? We're
right.
deploying the right resources for the right reasons, and just because it's expensive doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, right? It's what are you accomplishing using those resources? And so that's again where governance comes in, being able to see this and calibrate this and having the right KPIs in place to make sure that we are using our resources appropriately.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you.
Maybe I can help with that, right?
Yeah, it should. Yeah, that's right. I mean, as long as it's designed properly. I mean, like you said, governance is going to become incredibly more important as generative AI and LLMs become more and more common. This is something Satish talks about all the time. Like the concept of an LLM alone is pretty worthless unless you know that the data it's working with is accurate, persisted, governed. Again, like that data prep, data governance always continues to come to be the focal point of any type of use case, whether it's AI, data, whatever it may be. It's all about the underlying foundational layer that it's pulling from.
Yeah, it's still garbage in, garbage out, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. The result may look great and it may be stunning and it may come out really fast, but it could still be wrong.
It could be totally wrong, and you could make a horrible decision based on it. So it's going to become incredibly important. And I mean, we all know that Summit's going to have a big focus of generative AI and LLMs. I'm very excited to see what the actual messaging is behind that and like how that's actually going to be vocalized and broadcasted throughout the conference, since it's such a hot topic. And Snowflake's been able to move super quickly to keep up to pace with that, clearly with this acquisition that they made recently. But I would anticipate that there's going to be a really thoughtful message associated with any of the product functionalities or feature functionalities that they're launching in accordance with that. And they're in such a prime position to take advantage of that type of tech as well, given they host so much data and they are able to work with such massive volumes and so many different customers. So there's so much potential there for them to leverage it. What about you, Frank? It sounds like you've got a great session that we're excited about. Is outside of that, which I would love to hear a little bit more on, and I'm sure the audience would as well. Is there anything that you're most excited about for this year's summit?
Yeah, I have. Well, I think for me personally, I'm most excited just to connect with the community, see Snowflake's sort of been my life, I think, the last 5 years, but because I really do appreciate what Benoit and Thierry and Marcin did. I mean, I think a lot of people forget, but all this stuff was really enabled by amazing architects that had a vision, and they got Spicer, or he gave them more of the ideas and made the most money off of all this. But it's really those engineers. I mean, I'm a little biased. I'm both MBA and engineer, but that it's this architecture that's really launched at least, I don't know, 70-80% of all this TAM or all the stuff that's come about. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited. Snowflake is awesome, and we're trying to make it better too. So I have 2 presentations. One is with a couple other my data superhero colleagues where we talk about how to build data applications on Snowflake. So a lot of that's going to be focused not just on native apps, which I'm most excited about, which is really kind of the big thing coming out. I think they're going to launch with about 20 at Summit, then we're launching more right after that. It just makes it easier. I mean, to me, it takes that whole data marketplace experience to a whole nother level, and now it's the marketplace. It was the data exchange, the data marketplace, and now in 2022 or 2023, it's the marketplace because there's applications on it. You know, it's a very transformative time, I think, to be able to click on something similar to Partner Connect, and then you could be up in a data application in a few minutes. While I love the data marketplace, you know, there's still limitations to it. There's still a lot of learning, modeling, understanding of the data sets, where I think this takes it to a whole nother level, removes friction. And the funny thing is about what Kent was talking about, which I thought about a lot, because before I came across Snowflake, I'd run this consulting company for like 17, 18 years. We'd done a ton of data warehousing, data applications, always been a data guy. But we had also done websites, all sorts of stuff. And I'd done neural networks and AI work, you know, back when it was like SAS and SPSS and freaking really painful to train models and everything. And that has come like crazy circle. But I was talking about, I really saw this thing in 2015, 2017 timeframes of, I was talking about the combination of AI, automation, and data all coming together. And I see that coming further and further with this. And it's kind of where Snowflake flipped or moved forward into the data applications. You know, the big thing, I don't know, it resonated with me at the last one was Christian was like, you know, we're revolutionizing data application creation. And it's just interesting to see where Streamlit came. And, you know, as someone been around, like we built these things 3 layers for so long. You know, you had to hire back-end developers or database people, you had middle tier developers, yeah. Or I would always try to hire a combination of at least 2, and then front end. And so what Streamlit did to me is it removed a lot of those other 2 layers, or made them more just like easier to do or more automated. And so it's given a lot of power to the back end. So anyway, when I was talking a lot about that, the whole garbage in, garbage out, and that's why people are really concerned with AI. I think there'll be regulations and other things that come through the governance, because, you know, it's a huge issue, and then we're going to see security issues with it too. It'll be a way that you know, bad actors can create serious, massive problems if there's not quality checking along LLMs. I mean, I mess with my buddy ChatGPT, and you know, it's amazing how authoritative his their wrong answers come out.
Exactly. That was my point. Totally.
It is perfect. And then let me check this. No, you messed up the code. You're missing this function. Oh, I am so sorry. Da, da, da. You know, like, it's scary. So I see both ends of the spectrum on it. But anyway, that's what I'm really excited about is, you know, I had another talk about optimization with one of my customers, James Scoggins from City of Hope. So I'm really excited about that. All the data superheroes that are going to make it to this. There's a lot of great presentations they're doing at it's in the big snow area. So
I was going to say, is there a superheroes lounge again this year?
Yeah, it's a lounge. Yeah. They also use it like Felipe. It's like a community stage. So it's like an open air theater in the middle of the whole summit experience with the vendors and everything. And I think there's a few stages there, but this is one of the bigger ones. And to be fair, Snowflake does a great job with this, and Howard and Elsa, all the people involved with the data superheroes, they do a good job of both presenting that, but there's a whole community aspect to it too that Snowflake does really well with. I'm excited about that too. And the parties, of course, and then like, I think I'm really excited that someone mentioned it, to see, Armon, are you gonna pass it to you? Like, you gonna bowl or something? What's going on?
I was just about to say, well, first off, I'm excited for you to be talking about Snowflake optimization as well. It's something that I know that you've had as a project for a long time, and watching that formalize into business has been awesome, just as a friend more than anything. Also, just knowing how many Snowflake customers out there are always thinking top of mind the importance of optimization, like the financial optimization that Kent was talking about earlier, and kind of workflow governance. So I'm excited for both those presentations. I love hanging out at the Snowflake Data Superhero Lounge. There's always some cool characters. It looks like Sunny's giving us a hello from Charlotte. Hey, Sunny. And yes, it's true. I will be attempting to bowl at a big event we're doing with Fivetran at Summit. So if anybody wants to watch me take an 8-pound ball and roll it into the gutter over and over and over again, you can find it there, and you should register. It's going to be huge. It's going to be awesome. I think there'll be other better entertainment than my skills, but it should be really fun. So there's a lot of exciting events. We'll definitely post a link later that everybody can go to come find us, the Coalesce team, the different events that we're hosting. There's some other exciting things that we're doing too. But yeah, excited about your two presentations, Frank. Satish, what are you most excited about?
Oh, definitely the generative AI and the LLMs.
Yeah.
You know, that's super exciting. And again, I totally, you know, agree with that foundation, right, aspect of the data that goes in. I mean, we can't say enough about garbage in, garbage out. This has been there forever. It's the same problem. Everything else around is changing so fast. Basically, what's happening now is you can generate bad information very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So that's, you got to be very careful. So having said that, I am super excited about how the LLMs can be trained. Maybe there is a way for LLM to be brought into Snowflake environment or something like that. That's my big focus. Apart from the other like Snowpark features and native apps and other things, they're awesome because now Snowflake is becoming more like an ecosystem rather than just a one online data warehouse, what it was a few years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm super excited about this, the generative AI aspect of it.
Is there anything on a generative AI front that, I know we talk about like the garbage in, garbage out concept. Are there any unique advantages that you all see when it comes to Snowflake on capitalizing with generative AI and LLMs that, from your own visions or thoughts are unique potential that they can capitalize on?
I think it's just the scale.
Yeah.
Of the data cloud, right? the combination of its ability, the infinite scalability, the availability of the processing power, because that's really what's limited things in the past.
Right.
From data warehousing all the way through AI, and Frank's experiences with AI and machine learning in the past, it's there's always been limits, right? Of what you could do, how fast you could do it, how much data you could use. We generally agree when we talked about machine learning in the past that more data is better. Now we refine that a little bit. Yes, more data is better as long as it's good data. So back to my earlier statement, I think, the governance capabilities that Snowflake has built in, combined with data sharing and data marketplace and the infinite scalability of the resources, literally, the sky is the limit at this point. We just have to be careful how we use it, that we use it ethically and judiciously. Right. There's as Peter Parker's uncle would say, with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
And I think that is on it. Superheroes, Veronica, if you're listening. Likes to do all her talks about the actual superheroes out there in the Marvel and DC world.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true, right? It's true. So I think that there's just, massive possibilities. And then you combine that with native apps, right? So, native apps being driven by this data, that involves LLMs and generative AI, and making it accessible to your citizen analysts and what we used to call citizen data scientists. But how are you going to do that, right? Like for me, I'm not a huge statistics guy. I don't like writing code of any kind at this point. SQL, yeah, I'm still good with SQL, but Python, Java, nah, I don't want to do that. But how could I take advantage of this? Well, if Frank builds me a nice native app that allows me to go, pick algorithms and pick input data sets from a marketplace so that I can achieve whatever the goal is I'm trying to achieve, it won't be necessarily as easy as Chat GPT, but maybe someday it will be, that I can go in and I can use my creative mind to solve a problem without having to have this high level of technical acumen to actually program it all myself and make sure that it's good. The output is good.
I remember like the co-authors of the fundamentals of data engineering, Joe Race and Matt Housley, were on our Coffee with Coalesce in a previous session. And one of my takeouts from that textbook or book was around the focus of automation and ease of use in the future, and being able to apply that same fundamental principle to all the different aspects of the analytics workflow. I would imagine it's going to be very similar with how people leverage generative AI and LLMs, where ideally you could have some type of component that can consume from whatever data set you're dealing with and just be used for those types of use cases, whether it's asking your data a specific question about, your marketing database or your sales from your customers, or something associated with your product usage. It should get closer and closer to being able to do something like that in a very simple, automated, easy to use way, and really drive some type of decision making and insights, which sweet.
And think about being able to, everybody's talking about data products now, but to be able to easily build a data product that way.
Yeah.
Using generative AI and using the power of Snowflake, and be able to build and publish a data product for people to use, because that's the ultimate, right? Is the data product takes all of that out. So I don't have to know anything. I just need to know, what I need to input and what output. I need that data product that's going to produce the information that I'm looking for, and maybe do some predictions, some predictive analytics. Maybe it does predictive analytics. Maybe it does some forecasting. And I'm a finance person, and I was like, well, what's our Snowflake spend going to be next year? Right?
Exactly.
And I want to figure that out, but I don't want to go to my IT team and say, hey, go query the information schema and see who's been doing what with Snowflake, and then give me your best guess on what I need in my budget for next year. I want to go to an app and say, okay, consider, I know that, we've been using Snowflake for 6 years, and I know things have changed a lot in the last 3 years. So I really want to just look at the last 3 years, not the whole 6 years. So using the data from the last 3 years around cost and cost optimization, tell me what I should expect for next year.
Satish, what are your thoughts there? I know you were at OpenAI's office a couple months ago, or maybe a month and a half ago. Super curious to hear your thoughts on what Kent's talking about, and then also like what you see as the future.
So if you look at data science, right, most of the work is constantly it's experimental. You're always fine-tuning these models, and if you have to do that by writing code and by modifying code, tweaking those that way, you will not be able to scale. I think that's where this comes into play, what Kent is talking about, how you can make these algorithms available in a way that you're not spending too much time on actually coding as much, but you're trying to spend time on how to apply the algorithm to the problem that you have, and kind of keep going many times until you get the desired result. So I completely agree with that. As far as how this is going, So yeah, I was at the OpenAI office. There were a lot of other co-founders, founders, and other people there. It was super exciting.
Yeah.
One of the things that they were saying is this whole LLMs, how they can make it more financially accessible and feasible, because today they charge in a certain way, and while these models are pretty generic, but if you have to fine tune them to a particular use case, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of investment. But that's where the value is. If you can take an LLM and train it to a particular domain and make that available, that is where the value is. So I think we'll get there. And that's why I'm kind of curious and to know what Snowflake is doing about that. So maybe they acquired this and there is some plan there and some vision in making LLMs available via Snowflake, where you can train it, make it available. That would be awesome.
So it's basically, from your perspective, it's an arms race to who can train the model as quickly as possible. And
that's exactly right.
And if I'm Snowflake, if I'm thinking about this, you probably want to make that race as easy as possible for your customers, for their data, is the way that you'd want to design some application that sits on top of Snowflake to get the most out of each customer's data sets, or at least for their use cases, whatever it may be. They want to make it as easy, quick, simple as possible to train that model, so that way you can deliver that output. That's a super logical, makes complete sense to me. Frank, is there anything on your end that you'd like to add or thoughts about this whole topic?
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as I'm not frozen,
You're
think
good.
the big thing that Snowflake, and I've talked people like you, the way I look at it allows companies like Coalesce. I think one of the partners have that we kind of identified in what we call the automated modern data stack, like Coalesce.
Yeah.
And I think then also kind of what Sigma's doing now. High Touch took kind of like a concept I had several years ago, like basically building a CDP on Snowflake. A lot of these things were enabled through the micro-partition technology, a lot of the base core compute separation from storage. So I think, again, that's where Snowflake is enabling a lot of this stuff with even the data marketplace or the marketplace. That core technology enables all of this to function because it's such a great technology, and it's basically been built upon over and over again. And yeah, like you guys, then I think Data Ops Live, the other partner we're with, like all these, like some of them, I guess Fivetran would have been there either way, but a lot of them are, you guys, some of the stuff you do and CI/CD type functionality, that was really enabled by that core technology. Time travel,
zero copy cloning,
calm awareness types of things that you guys have.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. So, I think, again, because that core technology, it's enabling the LLMs as well. And all these different, basically there's new use cases, new products that the partners are coming out with on top of that whole Snowflake ecosystem that are enabled by that technology. So,
yeah.
And, what Kent said is I think it allows for that to grow faster. I mean, if you think about the friction removed when you have native apps combined with the data sharing, it's pretty massive that you can get data that quickly compared to the 4 to 6 weeks minimum or whatever it used to take for us to build, either build the API or consume the API or write the SFTP code, and somebody messes one section of the password up. So, this really enables and removes friction to enable these, next generation of, automation of data.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Satish and I were on a call with a founder for a generative AI company couple of weeks ago, and we were talking through the technology, what it's able to do. And it's really clear that, the future is automation, the future is ease of use, those types of core principles, but it's all with the great underlying assumption that the data is prepared properly with proper governance. And so I'm excited, very excited about this future state vision of, you've got your team that's trained the model well. You've got a simple, easy to use and easy to interact with interface for asking questions of that data set. And you also know that the underlying data set has been built properly and has proper lineage and governance associated with it. And, us at Coalesce are excited to be the ones to unlock that bottleneck for that end user layer, given that's the issue today, right now, is like trying to actually get that data set polished and ready for consumption. I feel like as this wave goes through, as Coalesce continues to expand into the market and give people something that's easy to use and automated for transformations, it will really be something that unlocks the ability for another technology to leverage generative AI to consume that foundational data set and get insights to consumers, whoever it may be, business person, data person, a lot more quickly, versus people launching companies that are capable of doing this, but then consuming a really bad data set or something that isn't governed properly and thinking they're doing this cutting edge stuff, when in actuality they're just causing a bunch of more problems for their business, themselves, industries as a whole. And so, for me, tying it back into Summit, seeing how they position this concept and how they want to roll out this functionality is going to be really interesting to me, and ensuring that their customers are successful and using this type of technology properly. So,
yeah. One thing I want to talk about before we are done here is I was thinking about this about last year. One of the lessons learned for me last year is, as you mentioned, vendors and all of that, and it's like, as you know, the show floor was massive. I mean, two giant halls, and it's one of the biggest exhibit halls I've ever seen. And I got so caught up last year in the talks that I actually missed meeting with some of the tech partners and SI partners where I know people. There were people there that I knew that I didn't even see because I didn't allow myself enough time to actually roam the vendor hall and look at the list of exhibitors and see who's there. I mean, obviously we want people to come by Coalesce booth and talk to you guys, but there's just so much out there, and that ecosystem has grown. Like I said, your old company, Warescape, was one of the first ones I got invited to join the Snowflake ecosystem back in 2015 and 2016. And it's just exploded, as evidenced by the show floor. And there are companies there that do things probably related to what we're just talking about with generative AI that we probably don't even know about. The four of us here probably don't even know them, right? Because there's so many, and they're adding so many partners constantly. So, for people attending, make sure you don't just look at the session list, but take a look at the exhibitor list as well, because the exhibitors are going to be doing presentations and demos in their booth, right? Just like the superhero pavilion, the community pavilion. You definitely want to go by there because I know there's going to be presentations there. There's the superhero panels, things that Frank has been talking about. But every vendor, well, probably not every vendor, not every exhibitor, but a lot of the better exhibitors are going to at least be doing demos, right, on their technology and showing you what they're doing with Snowflake and doing for Snowflake customers. But some of them will, there's apps now. Like Frank said, there's companies that are going to be demonstrating apps, native apps that are built on top of Snowflake. And, that's, getting that one-on-one in the booth and really getting to understand something that might be important to your business and to your success, you can't beat that in the exhibit hall, right? Agree. I mean, the in-person thing, I honestly, I tell you, I hate virtual exhibit halls. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Hate virtual exhibit halls.
Not the same.
It's,
Not the
I mean,
same.
it's just not the same. Yeah, I mean, Armon, Satish, we interacted probably more in person, the three of us, at shows, right, at conferences over a couple of decades, and you get relationships are formed better, and you get better information because you can hone in on what you're really interested in rather than, there might be some exhibitor and vendor presentations where you want to go in and you kind of get the overview of what they're offering. Right. That's great.
Right.
But it's a 45-minute session. There's room for 5 minutes of questions and answers, and you're not going to be able to really dig in. So you got to take advantage of the opportunity to be face to face with people, to go in and really seek out those ones that have products and services that are really going to help you solve your problems, and get in there. And
the space,
as you guys will attest, you love having people come to the booth and ask you the hardest questions you never even thought of, right? It's going to drive the development of your company and your product. It's very beneficial. It's a two-way street, right?
Definitely. No, I mean, I was going to say my favorite part of Summit is being at the booth, like by far. I mean, with the exception
with the exception of the parties, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Late night party, with the exception of late night party, for everybody that knows me, I like to have a good time. I will admit, I like to have a good time. But being at the booth is so much fun because you get to interact with all types of people, but particularly the actual practitioners that are using Snowflake's product, using Coalesce, other technologies, or partner companies like Fivetran, and get their feedback and hear their questions. Like Kent said, they bring the hardest questions, the most difficult questions associated with the product that typically you wouldn't have the opportunity to ask because, we don't get to meet with every single person out there. And also just hearing about the ecosystem, meeting with different partners. And then most importantly, like one thing that both Satish and I do at every conference we go to is go and look through all the vendors and all the exhibitors. Go and see what's new, what's cutting edge, what is out there in different parts of the stack. It's such an important thing to do to stay up to speed with such a quickly growing industry. And so, one quick call out I'll say is we've got a handful of different social events that you can go to see other vendors outside of just Coalesce and check out. So we've got obviously the bowling data lanes event. We'll have a link in the comments here for anybody to come to. Try not to watch me for too long. It won't be that good. We've got the Ethan Aarons hosting a low-key data happy hour Monday night with a few different vendors, which should be fun to check out. Then there's also a Desert Oasis Suite that we have. It's at the Venetian. We can't say the location just yet, but there's going to be some exciting things there for people to check out and a little scavenger hunt. So I'll give you a hint on that. But should be some awesome things to check out. There's a bunch of dinners, there's a bunch of parties, different parties. So again, just check out the comments, the link in the comment section. It'll have all the events that we're certainly hosting. And ideally, you can run into Frank, or Kent, or Satish and myself and come catch up. We'd love to see everybody there. It's going to be an awesome event, and I can't wait. So the link just got posted. Feel free to click that, check out what we got going on, hit us up on LinkedIn. Add us. You can DM any of us, ask any questions about what's to come at Snowflake Summit. But with that, I think we're right on time. I always love having you as a guest, Kent. Frank, this is our first time together, but you're the man. I hope you enjoyed Belize, and I'm super honored that you're even willing to take the time out of that vacation to join with us. And your Wi-Fi held up pretty damn well, I would say. There was a couple blurred outs, but we were all good. And thank you everybody for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Last thing, we have an incredible guest joining us next month, Bob Muglia. Speaking of all the Snowflake Summit stuff, the former CEO of Snowflake will be on our Coffee with Coalesce in July. So that's a month out from now. We'll have the link there as well for everybody to attend that one. That's one of the very, very exciting guests that we've got coming up next. So
absolutely.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.